A three-legged Mustang horse cried out and begged a man for help, defying all wild instincts. What happened next was truly unbelievable. Get ready for an extraordinary story of courage, compassion, and connection. A story that will forever change the way you see these magnificent animals. The rugged landscape of Wyoming's red desert stretched endlessly beneath the autumn sky. Wildlife photographer Michael Trent adjusted his telephoto lens, focusing on a small band of wild Mustangs grazing in the valley below. At 42, Michael had spent 15 years documenting the free-roaming horses of the American West. Through his viewfinder, Michael counted 8 horses, a sturdy bay stallion leading 5 mares and 2 young colts. As he systematically photographed each animal, his attention was drawn to an unusual movement on the herd's periphery. "What the hell?" Michael muttered, adjusting his focus. There, maintaining a cautious distance from the group, yet clearly following them, was a 9th horse, a chestnut Mustang stallion with a flowing flaxen mane. The horse moved with an odd, 3-point gait. As Michael zoomed in, he held his breath. The Mustang was missing its entire right front leg. The missing limb wasn't a fresh wound. There was no blood, just a clean shoulder where a leg had once been. Despite its disability, the horse retained a regal posture and an alertness that stirred something deep inside Michael. It appeared to be in the prime of its life, around 7 years old, with a glossy, healthy coat. For 3 days, Michael observed the three-legged horse. He noticed that while it traveled with the herd, it wasn't fully accepted. The lead stallion would chase it off whenever it got too close, especially to the mares. Still, the disabled Mustang persisted, trailing behind at a safe distance. On the 4th morning, Michael woke to find his camp wrapped in thick fog. As he debated whether to wait out, a sound from just outside froze him. A soft whinny, far too close to be a random wild horse. Through the swirling mist, a shape emerged. The three-legged Mustang stood less than 30 feet away, staring directly at him. "Easy there, buddy," Michael said softly, barely daring to breathe. Wild horses avoided humans at all costs. For one to approach like this was unheard of. Even more shocking was the horse's posture. Rather than displaying fear or tension, it stood calmly, locking eyes with Michael with a gaze that seemed strangely intelligent. It limped a few steps closer, closing the distance to under 20 feet. "What are you doing?" Michael whispered. As if in reply, the horse lowered its head and pawed gently at the dirt with its left front leg, then raised its gaze again. The motion seemed deliberate. The horse repeated the action, stepping closer, pawing, then staring. It turned slightly to reveal its shoulder stump, then looked back at Michael as if waiting for something. A chill ran down Michael's spine. Was this wild creature trying to communicate? Was it asking for help? As the fog lifted, the scene came into focus. Far off in the distance, the rest of the herd was grazing. The three-legged Mustang glanced back at them, then turned again to face Michael, ears forward, waiting. Then it gave a soft, mournful whinny, turned, and limped back toward the herd, its three-legged gait tapping a strange rhythm on the rocky soil. Michael watched it go, unable to shake the feeling that something profound had just occurred. That evening, under a starry Wyoming sky, Michael reviewed his photos and made a decision that would change his life, and the life of that remarkable horse, forever. At dawn, with the desert air crisp and clear, Michael set up a small observation post near where he'd last seen the herd. Coffee in one hand and binoculars in the other, he scanned the horizon for movement. By mid-morning, he spotted the horses moving along a distant ridge. He counted each one, the lead stallion, the mares, the colts, and there was still trailing behind the chestnut Mustang with 3 legs. What Michael witnessed over the next few hours deepened the mystery. The horse gradually distanced itself from the herd and edged closer to Michael's position. By early afternoon, while the others remained a quarter-mile away, the three-legged Mustang stood less than 100 yards from him. "This isn't random," Michael murmured. Through his telephoto lens, he could see the horse's eyes clearly, aware, focused, and seemingly looking right at him, despite his camouflage. Then, with deliberate slowness, the horse stepped closer. At 50 yards, it stopped. It lowered its head, pawed the ground again, and gave a soft whinny. The sound echoed across the barren land, a call that couldn't be misunderstood. "You're asking for help," Michael whispered. "But what can I do?" The Mustang took one more step, then suddenly turned back toward the herd. The lead stallion had noticed its absence and was approaching aggressively, ears pinned back. The three-legged horse quickly retreated, surprisingly fast on 3 legs. The dominant stallion chased it briefly, then returned to the herd, reasserting control. For the rest of the day, the chestnut horse stayed with the group, but Michael noticed it glancing toward his hiding spot again and again. The behavior was so out of the ordinary that he began to doubt his own instincts. As dusk fell, Michael decided to act. If the horse was truly reaching out, truly seeking help, he had to respond. At a spot halfway between his camp and where the horse had stood, Michael placed a small mineral lick in a shallow dish of clean water. Then he returned to his tent and set up a trail camera with a remote trigger to capture any nighttime visitors. The next morning, Michael checked the camera's memory card, and what he saw astonished him. Just after midnight, the three-legged Mustang had returned alone. The photos showed it discovering the salt, licking it cautiously at first, then more eagerly. It drank every drop of water. But the most striking images came next. The horse approached the camera, its nose filling the frame in curious examination. The close-ups revealed old scars on its right shoulder, clear evidence of a past traumatic injury. But there was something else, a faint, partially obscured brand mark under its mane. This wasn't just any wild Mustang. At some point, it had been captured, marked, possibly even trained. And yet, here it was, surviving in one of the most remote and rugged wild horse regions in Wyoming. The brand, as simple as inside a circle, was familiar to Michael from his years photographing local ranches. It belonged to the Redstone family, owners of Circle R Ranch, about 40 miles east of where he now camped. Michael packed up quickly, leaving more salt and water behind. He needed answers before taking further steps. The next morning, he drove east through the desert. All the way, he thought of the Mustang. How had a once domesticated horse, maimed and abandoned, survived in such harsh wilderness? And not just survived, but thrived with such dignity. By early afternoon, Michael arrived at Circle R Ranch. White fences stretched across open prairie, backed by well-maintained barns and vast fields. He was led by a ranch hand to meet the owner, Thomas Redstone, a tall man in his 60s with sharp eyes and silver hair. Michael got straight to the point. He explained everything: the Mustang, the missing leg, the brand. Thomas Redstone sat in silence, then stood, opened a drawer, and pulled out a dusty, old leather ledger. He flipped through it and stopped at an entry dated 5 years prior. "Sounds like you found Blaze," he said slowly. "A chestnut stallion, flaxen mane, fast, smart. Got badly injured in a trailer accident while we were moving horses to a new pasture. His leg was crushed beyond saving. The vet wanted to put him down, but Blaze broke out and vanished during the night. We searched for days, but found nothing." Michael sat speechless. Finally, he asked, "Do you think we should try to bring him back?" Thomas sighed, eyes distant. "If he's still out there, standing on 3 legs after all these years, then he's chosen the wild. But if he came to you, if he reached out, maybe he's ready for help." Michael returned to the desert with new purpose. This time, he wasn't there to observe. He wanted to create a space, a bridge, if Blaze was willing to cross it. He set up a small temporary paddock with rope and wooden stakes, stocked it with water, salt, and safe feed. Crucially, he imposed no pressure, just watched. For 3 days, Blaze didn't show. But on the 4th night, the camera captured him again. This time, he stood still by the paddock, staring inside. On the 5th night, he entered, calm, unafraid, eating and drinking peacefully. At dawn, Michael approached, slowly and respectfully. Blaze didn't move. He watched him. Then, in a moment nothing short of miraculous, the Mustang stepped forward and gently touched his muzzle to Michael's shoulder. Michael wept. It was the beginning of a new journey. Not to cage Blaze, but to build a bond of trust. In the following weeks, Michael and Blaze created a rare connection between man and horse. No reins, no fences, just respect, understanding, and patience. Michael set up a quiet outpost on the desert's edge. Every morning, Blaze would appear, standing a few feet away, waiting for water and food. At sunset, he'd retreat to the wild. The next day, he'd return. Blaze hadn't just survived. He had chosen to live with pride and grace. Michael had never seen a creature carry so much pain and still gaze at the world with such strength and gentleness. One morning, standing beside Blaze on a ridge, Michael whispered, "I'm not sure who saved who, Blaze. Maybe you saved me from just watching without truly seeing." From that moment, Michael began sharing Blaze's story through photos, videos, and heartfelt words across wildlife conservation forums and naturalist communities. Not for pity, but for inspiration. The story spread fast. Thousands across America were moved. Children with disabilities sent letters thanking Michael for telling the story of a horse who was imperfect but still incredible. Conservation groups reached out, proposing a sanctuary in Red Desert to protect both Blaze and other wild Mustangs. Michael declined to move Blaze elsewhere. "Blaze doesn't need a stable," he said. "He needs space, freedom to choose. The only thing we need to do is not hurt him again." Years passed. Blaze grew older, his muzzle dusted with gray. But each morning, when the desert glowed with dawn's fire, Michael still saw the familiar three-legged silhouette approaching, silent, proud, and forever unbroken.